Well, fair skies once again in Texas. We've got very dry conditions, and you can see that dew points are in the 30s and 40s as we're getting recirculated air from the southeastern U.S. Also, we have the dry line starting to become active, separating these 40s dew points from teens out in eastern New Mexico. And we also have the Canadian cold front entering the Oklahoma Panhandle and stretching out across Utah and the deserts of Nevada. California has also warmed up. We've got lots of 80s there in the San Joaquin Valley near Fresno, Bakersfield, and we're just starting to see a little bit of the cold air coming in from the north up there near Redding, where we've got winds coming around out of the north and even 58 degrees there. And we got cool air up in the Oregon deserts, low 50s in that area. There's a look at the satellite loop showing the convective instability across the central Rockies. Yesterday it was up in Idaho and Wyoming, and now it's down in Colorado and Utah there. You can see some convective elements north of the Las Vegas area. That could be the surface front. We can certainly take a closer look at that area. And this looks all like cirrus. It's pretty thick there. And underneath I can see a little bit of towering cumulus across the Sheep Mountains north of Vegas. But nothing really surface-based. But I would say that the front is somewhere in this area. Across the south-central U.S. and the southeast, we've got a very active frontal system there around the Wichita area. There it is right there. Warm front extending out across the Ozarks. And that's a very impressive temperature difference across that front. You can see that not only in the temperature, but also the wind field. And on the other side, we've got the cold front extending all the way down towards the Gage and Perryton area. Now, normally this would be a great pattern for thunderstorms, but we're not going to get that with these 40s dew points. If anything would be out there, it would be pretty high-based. The moisture axis runs from about Corpus Christi and Brownsville, looks like all the way up to the hill country and up to Wichita Falls and Enid. So it's about right there. So we're just about 10 or 20 degrees short of the dew points that we need to support deep convection. And there's how things look out there in Oklahoma. It's certainly trying, but we know that that's going to be elevated. Just now starting to see the anvils going up there north of Woodward. So you can pretty much take this and apply that to the surface chart and refine your positions. So there's the front, and the warm front portion extends out there towards Chanute, and then we kind of lose the definition out there in Missouri. There's SPC going for the marginal risk along the cold front all the way up across the low to the warm front portion. And you can see that they're talking about meager or low-level moisture being compensated somewhat by steep low and mid-level lapse rates. And they're looking for the main threat to be severe hail or damaging downburst winds. And there's those cells coming together north of Woodward. Not much of anything, really. Definitely got the elevated look, and I can see a little bit more specks of convection up there north of Pratt. Well, not much to talk about in the northeastern U.S. Still got that cold westerly flow coming in from the Great Lakes. And the way we analyze this is we pick out the large ridge covering most of the Midwest and north central U.S. So this is all high pressure. That's part of that cold air mass. And the north part of that air mass blowing west to east towards the northeast U.S. And then the other portion blowing east to west into Kansas and Nebraska. And there's how things look in the Pacific Northwest. Again, high pressure extending all the way from the Midwest into Washington and Idaho. So this is kind of like a connection between Canadian air and Pacific air, forming one large high, and that means that we've got northerly flow across Oregon and Idaho, and then on the other side we've got southwesterly flow, and that's given a little bit of downslope to Alberta, where they have a lee side trough and some warm conditions. And then for Europe, well, it looks like the scourge of the automated stations. See all these station plots here? They're reporting no sky condition. That's really depressing. We used to get really good cloud data, but not anymore. However, let's see. Enough of that editorializing. Well, we see a big ridge coming through the North Sea area. We got this old front in the Denmark area that's kind of fallen apart, and then just basically northeasterly flow coming into England, and that tends to be kind of cool this time of year. You can see the 40s and lower 50s in that area. Now, there is this cutoff low that's been off the coast of Portugal for the past couple of days. I don't really see an air mass contrast. I mean, I do see the convergence of the winds coming together. See, well, I got the colors backwards, but anyway, yeah, you see how the northeasterly flow comes in through England and France, and then southerly flow in Spain and southern France. I'm not really seeing much air mass contrast at this time, but I think this is probably a ripe area for frontogenesis, because as that flow continues, that should start improving or increasing the temperature contrasts. A quick recheck of the radar does show the storms going up there in Kansas, north of Pratt. Still looks to be pretty weak, barely getting 40 dBZs there. But I would expect there to be some rain and a little bit of gusty wind in those cells, and they are definitely elevated at this time. So to understand what's happening there in Kansas, we can look at the high-resolution rapid refresh, and we bring this up to the current time, 2122Z. And it is showing that convection breaking out there north of Pratt, also picking up a little bit on the convection north of Woodward. And we can pretty much place that front right in that trough, kind of like that. And what's interesting is you can see the snow bands there around Falls City, Omaha, up into the Kirksville area. So the trend with the high-resolution rapid refresh model is to develop a little bit of a cold pool along that front, helping to propagate these storms to the southeast. Let me shut that off. That keeps coming on. Yeah, there's that cold pool coming together. So we're going to get some of those showers moving through the Emporia and Wichita area. And then it looks like they're somewhat diurnal, because by 5Z midnight, they're pretty much gone, and we're left with this weak elevated stuff out around the Kansas City and Emporia area. And you can see that snow band moving eastward towards the Quad Cities and towards the, I guess it'll be Springfield, Illinois. And there it goes, and then by tomorrow morning, that cold front just kind of sinks south through Oklahoma and enters North Texas. So looking at our forecast for this evening, well, we'll just retrace our fronts. There they are, very evident there on the heights and thickness. And up to the north, there's our ridge, extending all the way from pretty much the Appalachians up to Washington. So going through overnight, everything moves quickly eastward into Illinois by tomorrow morning, and you can see Chicago getting that snow there, snow bands all the way into northern Indiana. And then by evening, this is the picture here. I'll draw those fronts out. Yeah, it's going to run something like that. I can also see a little bit of maybe an upper level low. I think that's a weak upper level low there along the California coast here near San Francisco. The cold front is coming into East Texas there, and it's being driven by this weak 1021 millibar high. Looks like a little bit of frontal activity going on up there in central Canada. So that's going to be the fronts up in that area tomorrow night. Then things move quickly into upstate New York and Massachusetts there tomorrow evening. And that high pressure just kind of barges its way into Kansas, Arkansas, Missouri. Then for Saturday evening, looks like we start getting that return flow setting up from the Gulf. So we're bringing up the moisture, and I think I think that's probably the front right through here. Little warm front lifting north, and that's probably the cold front edge right there. And let's see. Oh yeah, also there's another Alberta clipper coming there into Minnesota and Wisconsin, being driven by a weak 1015 millibar high up there in Canada. Thunderstorms blowing up there in Louisiana. I guess the warm air advection is really starting to set up. And I can see in the upper level patterns, we got the southern stream jet starting to develop. So it's helping to produce some of these showers. So by Sunday evening, wow, things really get going there in Alabama. And I think we've got some surface support right through this area here. I can pick out maybe a little bit of frontogenesis coming together there. Or that could be that old boundary that lifted north, and maybe we're seeing that advecting up into Mississippi and Alabama. So that looks like what's happening there. In other words, I think we're seeing probably kind of a stationary front like that, and then a warm front segment out to Georgia. So it's helping to get some of those showers going. As far as severe weather potential, I think the best thing to do would be back this up to 18Z before the convection really gets going, and then pull up a forecast sounding. So this is going to be, I think I clicked that around southern Mississippi. And let's see. Yeah, there's definitely some instability there. Capes moderate about 1100. Pretty good moisture. It's not moisture that tapers off very rapidly with height. And the hodograph is supportive of tornadoes. Getting that curvature there that will help support rotating storms. So certainly our chances of severe weather are going to be there on Sunday, the 19th. And let's go ahead and bring that forward. Yeah, that system really gets going there Sunday night, moves off the Carolina coast. New Alberta clipper coming south. There it is right there. So getting some weak snow showers in the northern Great Lakes. For Monday evening, that Alberta clipper does have a bit of punch there in Wisconsin. It doesn't extend very far south, but it is affecting the Great Lakes area pretty solidly there. Looks like a piece of that little warm front lifts up north in Texas, kind of on the west side of that high there in Arkansas. And then we can go up to Tuesday. And looks like that warm front actually starts getting some showers going, getting the isentropic lift north of that front with that warm air advection setting up. And if we look at the thickness pattern, looks like we got a southern stream jet, actually a split flow, two jets running like that. So pattern's getting a little bit complicated once again, and looks like a new warm front approaching the Washington coast. And that's about all I've got for next week. Just looks like storms once again for Wednesday night going into Thursday in the southeast. That looks like a bit of an MCS being indicated. And then we see pretty good punch of cold air coming in from the Pacific. Pretty strong maritime polar air mass coming in, and that spreads eastward towards the weekend. So it looks like kind of a return to cool weather. It's certainly acting like April. And then just a quick check of our cells there in Kansas. Elevated cells definitely coming together there in the region just west of Wichita. I'm not even going to bring up GR level 2 because these aren't really going to be doing very much. Probably a few hailers in there, a little bit of gusty winds, but as we saw with the HRR model, Those should form up into a cold pool. That's going to reinforce the cold air back behind the front, and it's just going to be all like squeegee squall line type stuff, but with less instability. There's always the chance one of the cells could become dominant and produce a little bit of severe weather, but there's just no way of anticipating that. Probably the best chance for any storm going severe is going to be in this area where the winds are a little bit easterly. So that's going to be North Wichita. The flow southwest of that area in here is kind of veered. And you can see the difference in the photographs. Let me bring up a photograph just south of Pratt there. So here, down along the cold front, you can see not very much shear. See that 0 through 1 kilometer shear? Very, very little. So we can't really get much SRH out of that. But let's check out the area along that warm front. There you can see a little bit more stretching of that photograph. So it's easier to pull out better SRH in that area. And I think that's about all I got. So I hope you enjoyed the weathercast. We will see you again tomorrow. So take care, and hope you're staying in good health. And we will see you in 24 hours. Bye-bye.